Hello, and today I'm going to be inviting different topics different perspectives into the idea of sex and sex education. Sex and sex education are topics deemed taboo in most households across the nation. The conversations are consistently avoided by adults and prevented by sex education laws that prohibit comprehensive sex education because the topic makes them uncomfortable. These discrepancies across the nation on the type of sex education that should be taught in schools creates confusion for young adults and safety concerns. In high school, I remember throughout my 4 years knowing 3 young women ranging from the age of 14 to 18 years old having unwanted pregnancies. There was a time where one of my peers who got pregnant her sophomore year would come to class every day after having her baby with a baby carrier and supplies so she could pick up her child after school, being just a child herself. I fortunately had parents who talked to me about sex and healthy sexual habits, and while sitting next to this girl, I couldn't help but think the lack of conversation she had with any adult on any of this. I wonder how different this woman's life would have been if she had the proper knowledge on healthy sex and pregnancy prevention at the age of 14. The CDC provides proof on the lack of pregnancy prevention education in ages 15 through 19, through a study that showed only 70% of females and 62% of males received formal education on methods of birth control. Looking back on this and knowing these statistics, I think more and more about why some parents and educators advocate for no sex education, abstinence only, or even comprehensive sex education in middle and high school. For the purpose of this speech, I'm going to put myself in these perspectives and explain the arguments from the adult's perspective, whether it's an educator or a parent, for the types of sex education that should be offered in school. So the first perspective is on the idea of no sex education. No sex education is an argument on the idea that sex ed is not something for the innocent minds of young students. It should not be taught in school. Those that advocate for no sex education tend to view the topic as something that only the parents should introduce to their children, and by having it in the public school system takes away the control of knowledge that is shared. Parents believe that it is not the educator's job to teach their students on this subject, and that this material should be taught through the morals and raising of the family. Another claim for this perspective is that it's against religious and spiritual doctrines to promote the topics of sex and positive sex behaviors in any way. Students who practice religions such as Catholic or Protestant are taught by their parents that premarital sex, birth control, and abortion are wrong. Therefore, the parents believe that sitting in a class where any authority figure of their life contradicts those beliefs should not be allowed. Another opposition related to sex ed for religious concerns is that when the school teaches students on pregnancy prevention like contraceptives and abortions, they're teaching students how to get rid of the child or that life rather than the reduction of sexual activity. Finally, an argument for no sex education is based off the immorality of teaching students about relationships that aren't homosexual. A News and Observer article from April 20th, 2018 stated the NC Values Coalition urged NC parents to keep their students home to prevent them from receiving graphic, gender-bending, promiscuity-promoting sex education. Some may argue by teaching on different sexualities and interpersonal relationships, they are ruining the mindset of young children by introducing the relationships that aren't based off homosexuality and encourage early sexualization of children. That's just the first perspective on no sex education. The second I have is abstinence-only sex education. The argument for this promotes sex education, but only by providing the necessary information, with the ultimate point being that abstinence is the only safe way. Abstinence-only based sex education should just teach the facts on the human body and the consequences of sex. This means students learn about the outcomes that can occur from sexual activity and nothing on the topics avoiding unwanted pregnancies or sexually transmitted diseases. Parents who argue this believe that the only way to 100% guarantee that students don't get pregnant or contract an STI is through abstinence. Therefore, that should be the only suggestion taught in schools. The EWTN, which is a Catholic news, radio, and TV station, responded to a study in 2007 that stated abstinence-only programs don't work and comprehensive education is more likely to prevent unsafe sexual habits. The response was that by saying if anti-drug and alcohol programs were to fail, schools wouldn't offer more knowledge on how to refuse drugs, give them clean syringes, or tell them to just wear their seatbelt while drinking and driving. They view providing sex education as the same way. The religious and Catholic networks also find the topic to go against the teaching of chastity, and by banning sex education in schools, parents will be more encouraged to learn and teach the value through God's love and plan. The abstinence-only sex education relies on the hope that students won't participate in sexual activity until marriage, and the need to educate on other subjects related to sex are irrelevant. The third and final perspective I have for you is comprehensive sex education. Those who argue for comprehensive sex education, it is formulated to teach young people on how to participate in positive sexual behaviors, while including information on contraceptives, STIs, interpersonal relationships, and other risk-reducing methods involving sexual activity. This education argues that humans are innately sexual active, therefore they should be given the most information possible to protect them from severe consequences. So rather than delaying sexual initiation, comprehensive sex education is a proactive method that provides medically accurate information and destigmatizes sex. According to a blog post from the Good Men Project, 95% of people do not wait until marriage to engage in intercourse, and even 80% of Christians have reported non-marital sex. Another reason for the urgency to provide young people with correct and accurate information is the access they have to internet. By beating their curious minds to the possible harmful parts of the internet, leaders and mentors in their lives can guide them on the proper risk-reducing sexual behaviors in a safer environment. Comprehensive sex education would reduce the amount of deaths, abortions, STIs, and even abuse within young adults. The final argument for comprehensive sex is that parents tend to be horrible at teaching their children the proper information. Therefore, it needs to be done by a well-educated and trained professional. In conclusion, considering these three perspectives and the opinions from parents and educators, there are many differences on the teaching of sex education across the nation. Multiple states offer different types of sex education, and different age requirements of the topic should be introduced. Going beyond the types of sex education that should be taught, there are many other factors to consider. Therefore, in my next blog post and speech, I will be discussing the problems with these discrepancies and provide a possible plan to solve this the safest way possible for young adults who are most affected party for this topic. Thank you for your time.